Hi everybody, I think we'll start now. So let me welcome you all again and also thank you for attending today's online session from CHAP, Crop Health and Protection. For those who don't know, we're one of the UK's Agritech Innovation Centres funded by Innovate UK. CHAP in particular specialises in driving agritech to support sustainable crop production, working alongside government, academia and industry to increase the adoption of innovation. And one of our areas of specialisms is controlled environment agriculture, known as CEA, which is why we're all here today. I'll let our speakers explain more, but for CHAP, our facilities in this field include the Vertical Farm and Development Centre, Advanced Glasshouse Facility, Innovation Hub for Controlled Environment Agriculture, and the Natural Light Growing Centre. I'm Janine Heath, Head of Marketing and Communications at CHAP, and I'll be chairing this session for you today. So I'd like to say a big hello to everyone. So I have to thank our absolutely excellent lineup, and I'm so pleased they're joining us today. We're going to open up with CHAP's Innovation Network Lead and Resident Environmental Scientist, Dr. Harry Langford, who's going to explain what vertical farming is, as well as talk us through potential outputs, including pharmaceutical crops and alternative proteins. CEO of AEH Hydrogel and multi-award-winning entrepreneur, Dr. Beanish Sadiq, is going to share with us one of the newest substrate innovations in this sector and how this is transforming the sustainable credentials of vertical farming. Ollie Kayberry, Head of Business Operations at Jones Food Company, will speak all things commercial and associated learnings as they excitingly embark on building one of the world's largest vertical farms. And then our final speaker is Ed Morgan, Director of Communications at Harvest London, who will discuss developing successful B2B relationships to support sustainable brands within a local food system. We'll then wrap up with a Q&A, so please do type your questions into the Q&A box throughout today's webinar. Just a bit, oh, sorry, lost the slides there, go back. Just a spot of housekeeping. We are recording the session and we'll share it afterwards for those unable to make it. You'll receive an email when which you can share with colleagues. We'll also post a link onto our social media channels, which is @ChapAgriTech, all one word. Aside from the Q&A function, any problems or if you need to contact us, please use the chat box and our fabulous marketing and events team will strive to rectify that for you. And just to kick off, we're going to interact with everybody as we have our first poll. Hit that. Oh, hopefully we'll have that in a minute. There we go. What is your current awareness and knowledge of vertical farming? 1, being very little or nothing, and 10, being a lot. If you could just click which one applies to you. We'll leave that for a few moments just while you populate. Okay, I think it's all slowing down a little bit now. By the looks of it, I think most of you are around a 7, so a reasonable amount of knowledge on this. A few around 8, 5, 6. So yeah, mostly reasonably informed about vertical farming, which is great. Let me just close that poll. Oh, I need to share the results first. Here you go. Hopefully you can see. There you go. 83% of you participated, which is great. Thank you for engaging with us on that. Okay, so without further ado, we have our first presentation from CHAP's very own Dr. Harry Langford. Dr. Langford has a PhD in environmental science, and before joining CHAP, he spent 3 years working as a knowledge exchange fellow for N8 Agri-Food Resilience Programme, where he built and led an innovation cluster on urban and controlled environment agriculture. He's led and collaborated on a range of CEA projects here at CHAP, including autonomous hydroponics and capturing nitrates from drinking water for use as a liquid fertiliser. So I'm going to pass over to Harry, if you don't mind sharing your screen, and off you go. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Janine. Let me just share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see that. Yeah, so it's great to talk to you all today. Just to give you a little bit of a background on vertical farming and then go on to begin to explore what directions this sector is going in terms of pharmaceuticals, alternative proteins, and novel cropping in general. So, as Janine said, we're an independent organization, and we're set up to act as a catalyst for change and innovation in the arable and crop sector. And it's particularly the CEA pillar that we're supporting through this webinar today. And our mission in CEA really is to improve the scalability and innovation in CEA and explore circular economy opportunities, routes to net zero, and building locally integrated food systems. So that really is the sort of brief that we work to in the CEA space, which includes vertical farming. And just to provide a bit more detail, as Janine's introduced these in general, but we do have a number of infrastructure facilities that we use to help support the sector so that they can easily test new technologies, new practices, new ideas. And they're located across the country in 3 principal locations. Our Innovation Hub for Controlled Environment Agriculture is a containerized vertical farm that's up in the James Hutton Institute in Dundee. And that really is for small scale sort of testing and demonstration of next generation technologies. And further down south in Stockbridge Technology Centre, we have our Vertical Farming Development Centre, which is really all about commercial scale R&D trials in a commercially replicable R&D environment. And that is using an ebb and flood hydroponic system. And we have our advanced glasshouse facility that is quite a flexible commercial glasshouse that is particularly optimized for crop protection and integrated pest management research, because it's hermetically sealed bays that we can work in between. And lastly, down in Warwick, we have our Natural Light Growing Centre, which is a low carbon ETFE greenhouse. So that's using a polymer instead of glass. And that's really, we're looking at technologies that can optimize sustainable horticulture through natural light growing in that facility. So just to define what's the difference is between controlled environment agriculture and vertical farming. So CEA is a technology-based approach to food production that optimizes growing conditions. And it really does that in a growth environment that's either partially or completely closed to protect it from the elements, and the system is precisely controlled. And how that differs from vertical farming is that vertical farming is obviously a vertically stacked CEA production system in which all aspects of the growing environment can be controlled, like temperature, humidity, irrigation, nutrition, and even air composition. And recently, there has been, I guess, a new development in CEA, which is almost a hybrid between the two. So now there are hybrid vertical glasshouse or vertical greenhouse systems as well that try to replicate that vertical farming and the advantages of vertical farming, but also allowing the sunlight into that system as well. And yeah, what's really driven the CEA sector and what's really allowed it to develop, and the vertical farming sector in particular, are these 3 enabling technologies. And that's the irrigation technology, either hydroponics or aeroponics. And that can be either by ebb and flood, where you're flooding periodically a substrate that holds your crops, or NFT, nutrient film technique, where you're flowing a thin film of nutrient solution across the root zone and recirculating that, or deep water culture, where you're rafting your plants above a deep water pool of nutrient solution, or aeroponics, where you're misting the roots with a nutrient solution. And LED lighting, particularly the red and the blue LED lights, have really allowed us to define a spectra that's really quite suitable for plant growth, and then been able to optimize that spectra to enhance certain things and flavor, taste, quality traits, and heating, ventilation, and cooling, which enables really precise control over the environmental conditions to optimize those for plant growth. But really what has been happening over the last few years really is work around sustainable productivity, because once the fundamentals enabling technologies really had sort of plateaued in terms of development, people have been looking at ways to improve production efficiency, to improve energy efficiency, to improve the infrastructure that vertical farming utilizes, and improve some of those inputs, particularly sort of growing media, which we'll hear a little bit about later on from Dr. Binish Sadiq. And these sort of new technological developments, so for example, intelligent growth solutions, where we can see at the top, are really focusing in on the production efficiency and actually using a lot of advanced sort of software development to improve the production efficiency within their farms. Whereas, you know, some CEA growers are linking directly to waste heat from, in this case, sewage treatment plants to improve the energy efficiency of their facilities. It's these latest sustainable productivity improvements that have really opened the door, or have started to open the door for crop diversification. Because previously it has been that principally leafy greens and herbs have been grown within vertical farm settings, because the energy costs associated with production have favored short life cycle crops like that. But we're beginning to get towards a tipping point in which other crops can be economically explored within these systems. And that's what I really want to spend the rest of the time today talking to. So, you know, what are the next crops that are going to be already being explored or are going to be explored commercially within vertical farm systems? And the clear sort of next commercial crop is undoubtedly strawberries. We see a lot of global investment here. The French company Agricole, for example, and Paris, who have a European branch now, both have quite successful containerized vertical strawberry farms. And the reason why they're doing this is primarily season extension and import replacement during the winter months, and also that they can offer a higher yield per unit area, a greater number of high quality fruits, and hopefully in a large number of cases reduce that carbon footprint on a per kilo of fruit basis. There are actually some companies that have taken to really exploring highly niche and premium strawberries. For example, Parity, American company, they have a vertical farm that grows omakase berries from Japan, and they charge $5 per strawberry. So there's definitely a lot of money to be made in strawberries if you do the right thing. And in the UK, we've got a collaboration between Agri SGJ, one of the main strawberry wholesalers and growers, and Digital Farming and Brits Energy to produce a new company, Flex Farming, and they're growing a 10-ton output vertical strawberry farm. They'll be growing as of about now, actually. So it's definitely taking off. Another thing that is starting to gain global interest is hops. And yeah, that's because, again, year-round production, reduced cycle time, but also the potential to localize and specialize the fresh hop supply chain. So with the vertical farming, you can actually increase the alpha acid contents of your hops. So basically you can make them higher quality, more bitter, improved aroma. You can actually begin to start experimenting with flavor within the hops. And it might not be, in fact, I don't think it will be, that all hops will be grown in vertical farms, but it may well be that specialist hops will be going forward, or hops to supplement the wider hop supply chain. And talking about pharmaceuticals now, one crop that we're beginning to see produced experimentally and potentially will then move into commercial production is saffron. So as you know, it's a high value crop that grows well indoors. It has a food use in terms of a spice, but it also has a range of pharmaceutical and nutraceutical uses in medicines and in nutraceuticals, in terms of in creams and all kinds of things. So the reason why vertical farming is useful for this crop is that it can obviously grow at a high number of crops per unit area, but it also can reliably mimic the cold shock that these crocuses need to actually reliably sprout and flower. So it could actually enhance the quality and the yield of these crops as well. And we're also seeing a particular trend towards, and this is especially in the United States, towards what's known as molecular farming. So actually combining transgenic approaches towards protein production using agrobacterium, which is a vector, and the tobacco plant, Ichthyiana benthamiana, to actually produce proteins that are specifically for drug production. So transgenic drug production, but done in a vertical farm using plants as the host, actually can potentially reduce the development time quite considerably. And similarly, in terms of bioactive compounds development, Plant Factory Cornwall, run out of the University of Plymouth, has been experimenting using protobiology to enhance the bioactive compound concentrations in a range of plants, lavenders, basil, that sort of thing. And they're really then testing these as novel therapeutics for cancers that are particularly difficult to treat, such as mantle cell lymphoma. And finally, on to sort of alternative proteins. And we're only just beginning to see sort of these explored within the vertical farm setting. So there's not much being done commercially right now, but one thing that is definitely being explored commercially is water lentils. And those are really from a protein powder perspective. So Pontus are doing this for a food route, a food market, and Dry Grow, a UK company, are doing this for an animal feed market. And the reason why they're doing this is obviously the water lentils grow relatively quickly, and they actually have a high protein ratio, so 42.1% protein, and they've got a very high amino acids and vitamin concentrations. And they're fairly sort of low in their resource intensity. So they're actually quite easy to more economically produce. So where we're seeing other sort of people taking interest, R&D interest, is around the pulses and legumes. And an example there is soybean. So the Wageningen University and researcher are trying to grow soybean in vertical farm systems. And really key to these, and this holds true for all pulses and legumes, is the need to develop the shorter stature cultivars. Otherwise, it's very difficult to grow them within a vertical farm system. And also to understand the trade-offs when you're growing legumes in a vertical farm system. So what Wageningen have found is that higher temperatures boost yield, but actually lower temperatures boost protein content. So actually, you need to very efficiently manage your environmental controls to ensure that you have a high yield and a high protein content. And similarly, a low red-blue ratio in terms of lighting does promote a shorter stem, so it makes the crops easier to manage, but it also reduces yield. So again, there's a need to balance those. So there's going to be a lot of exploratory work that's going to be needed to be done in terms of plant growth recipes with some of these alternative protein crops. But they're just beginning to be explored now in the research community and in R&D. And I'd expect it might take a little while longer, but I expect some of these proteins then come into commercial vertical farm production as well. And we've got other crops that are being explored, like seaweed in terms of alternative proteins, like vanilla as well, in terms of another high value product. So it really is an interesting time for vertical farming, wherein a lot of these new novel crops are beginning to be explored both in an R&D base and commercially. So it's an exciting time to be involved in the sector. I think I'll leave it there. So I hope that gives you a bit of an overview about what vertical farming is and how it's developed and how now it is developing to explore some of those more novel cropping sectors. And yeah, I look forward to taking your questions later.
Thank you very much, Harry. That was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it's a far cry from just a few herbs, I guess, and it shows the amazing potential of vertical farming to address current challenges that we're all facing right now. So linked to that, we actually have a quick another poll. This time we're going to ask, if vertically farmed produce was openly branded, would you pay a premium for it when purchasing your goods? So there we have, yes, I'd happily pay more. Yes, but only a little bit. No, I'd expect it to be the same price. And actually at the end, no, I'd expect it to be cheaper. So if you just put your answers in there. Also want to say that we've got some great chats going on in the box and some questions coming in. I'm really pleased that you're all engaged. So please continue. Great to see collaborations already taking place. Oh, everyone's coming in. Just leave you a few more moments to fill that in. Okay, I think we've settled there. So we're just going to share the results there that more or less expect to be the same price, or most people would be happy to pay a little bit more. Only 4% would expect to be cheaper, and 4% expect, well, happily pay much more. So that's great. Thank you very much. So now we're going to hand over to our next speaker. So that is Dr. Beenish Sadiq, CEO of AEH Hydrogel, who is currently working with CHAP on an exciting collaborative project that's investigating hydrogel as a growing substrate. Dr. Sadiq has a PhD in materials from the University of Manchester and has worked as an R&D chemist for Hydrogel Healthcare Limited. And among her very impressive accolades, she's won 10 prestigious awards for her innovative work, including receiving £1 million worth of funding from Innovate UK. So thank you very much. I'll let you share your screen, Beenish. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny, for the introduction. And good afternoon, all of you. So basically, can you see my screen?
We're just waiting for it to catch up, I think, Beenish. Yes.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. So we are AEH Innovative Hydrogel, And our vision is to become Apple of Agritech. As Jenny, she has already mentioned to you, we have won 1 million Innovate grant to work on exciting project that is a growing medium to replace currently unsustainable growing mediums such as rock wool, peat, or there are a number of other growing medium. So we are, for this project, basically, we have partnered with Crop Health and Protection, and throughout the process, development process, Crop Health and Protection, they are helping us. So because when I started this company, my background was not in agriculture sector, it was more into medical side of the business, but we have learned lots of them, Crop Health and Protection, and we are based currently at University of Manchester, that is Graphene Engineering Innovation Center, and Stockbridge Technology Center. Basically, they are helping us to do a trial for our new growing medium. Sorry, I just need... So Jenny, she has already gave a brief introduction about our company history, but I will just go again, but I'll try to be as brief as possible. So I have founded this company when I was working on my PhD, and it was around October 2018. When I founded this company, the vision was to develop sustainable material for different application, for example, agriculture, medical, and also on environmental side for water purification. I properly started working on this company in February 2019 when I was granted my PhD, and then my whole focus was to make this company successful and to bring innovative product into market. So firstly, I secured seed funding from the University of Manchester to kickstart the research, and then after that, I met with Harry from Crop Health and Protection, and we decided to apply for Innovate UK grant, and we have won our £1 million. And then we start raising private investment, because when we were working on this project, we have realized there is a lot of market opportunity for us, because growers from all around the world, they have approached us because they were looking for a new product, new sustainable growing medium product. We have raised equity investment more recently, and it's around 3.5 million. And now for 2022, basically, our vision is to start selling our product. When I started this company, I was a one-person company. Now we are 17 team members, and hopefully one of our product will be in market in June, and lots of you will be able to buy our product directly from our website from June. So if I come to problem, basically the challenge which we are tackling. So as most of you are aware that globally agriculture contribute 20% to greenhouse gas emissions. And now luckily retailers and consumer preference, as well as government legal commitment, dictate that food production has to become more sustainable. And what is our focus? When we started this project, our focus was to phase out peat as a growing medium in agriculture, as it will be most likely to be banned after 2030. And more recently, we have heard that it will be definitely banned by 2028. So there are other alternatives for peat, for example, coir, rock wool, and then there are a few others. But as during pandemic, we have heard from lots of growers, coir, because it comes from the countries like India, Sri Lanka, but during pandemic, there was an issue with supply chain, and it also quite difficult to use, and it used lots of water to clean it. And on the other side, rock wool, because obviously it is derived from rock wool, so it's not biodegradable, and it has high carbon footprint. So globally, substrate market size in 2019 was our 5 billion. So it is not only, obviously, sustainability is key for us, but financially, this is also a really good opportunity for any business to go with sustainable substrate. So what is AH substrate? So basically, the brand name at the moment we are giving to our substrate is Gelponics, and Gelponics is a range of non-synthetic hydrogel formulations that enable truly sustainable agriculture. So what is it made up of? Basically, this hydrogel is made up of low carbon products and doesn't use any environmentally harmful synthetic polymers. There are if you see in the market, or if you Google it, then you will find potassium acrylate based hydrogel, and that is mostly used in traditional agriculture, either as a soil improver or just to retain water. But because potassium acrylate they use acrylamide as a cross linker, and acrylamides are carcinogenic. So this is the reason our product is 100% based on natural polymer material. So you can use basically Gelponics in wide range of agriculture settings, and it can significantly reduce any vertical farm or even greenhouses growers their carbon footprint, and it enables for sustainable farming. So at the moment, we are still working on our project as a part of Innovate UK grant, but these are the two basic products that we will bring into market. One are plugs, and plugs basically, they will be available in different sizes. It will be according to demand of potential customers. So it is compatible with all growth system, and this will replace rock wool, peat, and coir blocks. It is suitable for leafy greens and vine crops such as tomatoes germination. The second line of Gelponic product is sheets. So again, sheets will be available in different sizes, and they support mostly leafy green plants. And the third one are granules. So granules are basically, again, it fits with all growth systems, but they are mostly for traditional agriculture to act as a soil improver because it has natural NPK in the granules. So then it can reduce not only the water usage, but it can reduce for grower to not to use lots of fertilizer in soil, especially if fertilizer, they are not based on natural material. So as I have mentioned to you, we have started this project as a part of Innovate grant. So we did some testing for germination. So we are working with Stockbridge Technology Center and Crop Health Protection. So far, we have tested crops like lettuce, basil, spinach, and tomatoes. So we have noticed the germination rate is either 90% or above 90%. We are working with number of growers. For example, we are working with Vertical Farm and other greenhouses farm, and they have also tested other types of crops like coriander, rocket, and now more recently strawberries plant. So the way we did some tests at Stockbridge Technology Center, and the medium we have used is rock wool. Just to let you know, because obviously when you grow in vertical farm, there are different types of systems like NFT, ebb and flood. So the type of system we used here was more like deep water hydroponics. So deep water hydroponics, you just leave water on the benches and then you grow plant. So we have tested our different formulation, and basically we have seeded around 70 seeds per tray, and then the number of plants that have developed to commercial size on our different formulation was above 60, and the yield we have got on our crop is reasonable. And in deep hydroponic system, we have noticed yield is like higher than rock wool. So this is for lettuce basically results, and the same test we have did for basil, and we have grown fully. We have got really reasonable or good yield for basil as well. So now recently, this is again for strawberries trial. We have just started this trial in March, basically in March 2022. And we are working with our largest strawberry growers. And these tests are basically just to understand if we can use our growing medium to replace coir in greenhouse setting to grow berries like blueberries, strawberries. So these are in UK. We are also working with growers in USA, Mexico, and Canada. And the crops we are working with them is blueberries and strawberries, as well as leafy greens. So now more recently, we have been in touch with a Dutch company. So the company that is that they are growing leafy greens. So we will do trials with them in early May. So this is if you need to know any information about our hydrogel substrate, or if you want to try our substrate, please contact us at the email contact@aehinnovativehydrogel.com, and our website is www.aehinnovativehydrogel. So if you need any information, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for that insightful presentation. I think it's really interesting from both personal and professional perspective to hear your journey, Beamish, so thank you. So next up, we have our third speaker. That's Ollie Caybury, Head of Business Operations at Jones Food Company. Jones Food Company design, build and operate world-scale vertical farms and are currently constructing one of the world's largest vertical farms, which is equivalent to 70 tennis courts worth of growing space. Ollie joined in 2019, and prior to this, he worked in the electrical vehicle department at Jaguar Land Rover, focusing on EV charging infrastructure and end-of-life battery recycling. We're going to hear about the commercial business side of vertical farming and what the future holds for those in the middle of it. So Ollie, I'm going to let you share your screen and off you go. Oh, I think you're on mute there.
Sorry, yeah, I still haven't got used to mute. Thanks very much, Janine, for that introduction. So just in the interest of time, and also I'm just going to talk at you guys today, I will rattle through a bit about what we're doing and where we're going from a commercial scale point of view. But first, so Janine kindly introduced myself. So yeah, I've been with the company for 3.5 years in a mixture of roles, but finally landed at head of commercial operations and also looking after energy, which is the interesting piece of the puzzle at the moment. The Jones Food Company as a company was founded in the end of 2016, and after a year or so of fundraising, they started construction of their first farm in Scunthorpe, North Lincolnshire, in the beginning of 2018. Yeah, I need to get that right. And so what we built there was at the time Europe's largest vertical farm. It's 5,000 squared of growing space in a manufacturing footprint of about 1,700 square meters. So we grow in stacks of 17, and some of the images that you've seen on Dr. Harry's presentation before are of our site. And there's plenty out there in the media if you want to have a quick sneak peek, and on YouTube. So we've got quite a high density, utilizing a lot of the space on the ground. And from that facility, we grow just basil at the moment, because basil, we learn over time, doesn't play well with the other herbs. So as I'm sure if any of you listening also grow herbs, basil is the one which is slightly difficult and requires hotter temperatures and also a slightly more humid environment. So we're able to grow about 3,000 kilos of basil from that single facility per week. And all that produce goes into a mixture of different routes. So we service the wholesale B2B market. So we go into all the distributors that feed into the retailers, other than the one that goes to Waitrose. So we really chose that route because we bit our teeth on the vertical farming. I wanted to focus on that as first and foremost, rather than going straight to retail. There's a lot of nuances with getting into the food industry, and thought, how about we just get used to our system first before we go direct to retail. And that's and then the second route is also going into the meal boxes. So there's a few kind of household names out there at the moment where we supply our food, our product into, and we look to increase our exposure into those markets, because vertical farming and the meal recipe box companies, their models actually just go hand in hand. So we're very much focusing, and have got some good contracts there. And then lastly, we go into that's a bit of a novelty one, a direct consumer pasta company based in London, where we recently picked up, and we go into their pesto product. So that's a kind of another value piece for us. And as a consequence of that, we're looking at, well, can we also produce those pesto products at our facility to kind of go into a different market and open up further potential opportunities for us. Just a bit about why we chose those routes to market. It was largely driven by the fact that, in the UK at least, 90% plus of consumers get their products from supermarkets. So if we are going down this model of mass market exposure, the supermarkets are the best way for us to enter. So whilst there's a slight move towards D2C, and it's something which we'd look to do over time as we establish future farms and logistics networks with other third parties, that's the best route for us in order to really have the biggest impact and partly educate the consumer on vertical farm produce and make it that standard produce that you see on the shelves. It was very good to have that poll just before Dr. Binesh's talk about the costs that the consumer would accept. And, so 44% the same price they would expect, and 49% just a little bit more. So our goal as a company, and what we currently are supplying into the market at, is price parity. So there'd be no incremental cost on top of what you ordinarily pay for your produce. And the whole driver around that is, we have this visage of a man in Preston sent to the shop by his wife to get some basil, for example. And he's got two basils in front of him, one which is the 70 pence one, and one which is £1.50. Which one's he going to choose? He's probably going to go on price, and most UK consumers are price savvy and will purchase on price. So for all the products that we do, we intend to be price competitive in order, again, for that kind of mass market exposure, but also, talking about the benefits of vertical farming. We're in business because we're trying to be a more sustainable agriculture, and so by growing and supplying on a mass scale, our intention is that we're thinking of the greatest CO2 reduction in agriculture that we're able to achieve. So then moving forward for the company, as Janine mentioned, we've got our JFC2 facility opening up down in Gloucestershire. Now that facility will be over 3 times as big as our JFC site, so nearly 15,000 meters squared of growing space, and where we'll do more herbs and leafy greens, again, because there's a large market there for us to develop and evolve our current contracts into. And fundamentally it provides a backstop for our revenue to come in, and then to invest for future profits into other areas. And those areas, which in terms of produce wise, and which Dr. Harry mentioned already, so he stole my thunder there, but it's a small world, so no worries. Are the strawberries, and we recently signed a deal with Berry Gardens, who are a large cooperative for strawberries, with the intention to generate or grow an indoor farm strawberry year round, be that stable supply consistently, so that in Christmas you can get a decent strawberry at home. I think you'll all agree that the strawberries that we do import in the winter period aren't the best, and we have to wait until the British season kicks off. So we're looking to be that year-round supply. Looking at also other medicinal herbs, not cannabis, I'll caveat that. Looking at things like chamomile and lemon balm that go into a few herbal medicines, and then also non-foodstuffs as well. One in particular is flowers. So saffron was mentioned before, a bit tricky with the labour side of that. We'd have to invent quite a lot of kind of harvesting material for that, but other flowers like tulips, for example, are grown largely in greenhouses at the moment. So why can't we do that in a vertical farm and do it local to where the retailer would be? I guess just in the interest of time, to give Ed some time as well. So just summarising like why we chose what we grow, it's to sort of reassure these lengthy supply chains that we have into the country. All our food has a much better holiday than you and I do each day. So our intention is to be far more efficient with how we spend our CO2 emissions effectively. And you know, it's not a sacrifice. You know, vertical farm produce can be great quality by leaning on different variables, tweaking different recipes and nutrient mixes. And I guess lastly, it doesn't need to cost the world to grow, and not if you're at scale and automation and focusing on all your direct input costs. So that is what is core to us, and so long as the price we're able to sell to our customers stays consistent, you know, we're in business for a long time, and I think there's real scope for vertical farming to grow above and beyond and expand into different markets from a commercial scale. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, Ali. That's great. I'm conscious we are running a little over, but hopefully if everyone can hang on for a few minutes after, we will continue and do the Q&A. But obviously, as we're recording this, you can access the additional content if you have to drop off. And Ali, you say Basil's a tricky customer. Well, that's maybe why I'm rubbish at it, growing it in my kitchen. It never seems to do much good for me. And just before we head into our final speaker, we do have one last poll, and that is, if the price of conventionally grown vegetables and vertically farmed produce was the same, what would be the next most important purchasing factor? So provenance, grown in Britain, whether it's zero pesticides, low water usage, or the CO2 emission output from field to fork. I'll just give you a few moments to answer that. A few more moments, that's interesting. Very interesting. Okay, I think most of you have answered that now. And coming out top is zero pesticides, but actually quite closely is the provenance, and that is obviously being grown locally or in Britain. So thank you very much for answering that one. That's great intelligence for us all. So now have a final speaker, Ed Morgan. Thank you very much, Director of Communications at Harvest London. Harvest London grows crops in a converted industrial unit in East London, supplying restaurants and food businesses across the capital. For them, it's all about shifting our food system towards more local, sustainable, fresh food. So Ed's going to tell us about how vertical farming can support brands with their sustainability goals, including their work with the pizza restaurant. Get my words out. Over to you, Ed, if you could share your screen.
Hello, let me just bring up my presentation. Can you see that?
Yeah, all good, thank you.
Great. Luckily for the purposes of time, Ollie's actually covered quite a bit of the same ground, because fundamentally we are not too dissimilar as a company, really sort of a couple of years behind Jones who are the UK market leader, I think it's fair to say. So we were founded in 2018 by, you see one of the founders up there, that's Matt and Chris. They had a small proof of concept farm, opened a larger farm in 2020, and we are hoping to open a much larger farm, not quite as big as Jones's, but getting there next year. So we also grow predominantly basil. That is basil you can see in that picture, but also a range of other things. The next farm, as Ollie was saying, you obviously you can't grow all the crops together. So the next farm will have 4 different climate zones, which will allow us to sort of balance things like herbs with salads and other leafy greens, which we've grown with some success so far. But obviously, you're always balancing that mix of different temperatures and light cycles, etc., in order to perfect your crops. I think that, I suppose, maybe one of the differences to point out with us is that we really started with restaurants because of partly, there's lots of restaurants in London, but also their desire for specific or niche herbs as well played to our strengths. And we have not yet pursued the supermarket route, I think, for some of the reasons that Ollie mentioned. But even without that, there is quite a lot of room in the market. Food service, food manufacturing. We also do some meal kits, food processing, that kind of thing. Worth pointing out that we, like Jones, are a operating company. We're a grower. We don't make our own hardware. And that's a deliberate decision because actually, as earlier speakers were saying, there's lots of really good hardware out there, and we see it, frankly, as being sort of a strength over time that we'll be able to use different types of hardware, different types of growing medium, for example, as well, rather than being stuck to one system that we have developed ourselves. So our specialism really is in the know-how of exploiting vertical farming technology rather than building the kit ourselves. Making it, I suppose, a bit more specific about how our relationship with our customers works. We don't see ourselves as the traditional wholesaler. We really start with that discussion with a customer about what exactly it is they want. So we've grown over 100 things, well over 100 by now, and that is in the leafy green, herb, salad, some fruiting vines as well, those kinds of areas. So we start with what the customer needs. We're able to pick the specific varieties that they would like to grow stuff, to trial it, to test it for them. We even have scope to change things like, do they want larger leaves? They want more leaves, less stem, that kind of thing. You can change some of the variables, and we'll have even more scope to do so in the next farm. Obviously, we grow exactly what they want, customers want, to the timescales they want, and that's aided by our own software. So we don't do hardware, but we have designed our own software, which says if a customer wants X amount of Y ingredient by said time, when we need to plant it to get it for them. And obviously we don't want to grow less than our customers want, but we also don't really want to grow more because we don't want to waste anything, for one thing, and also we want to maximize how many customers and how many different things we can get in the farm. So we're at capacity in our current farm now with a range of customers, and we're turning away people at the moment, which is why we are expanding. So from our current farm, we deliver as sustainably as we can manage, which is bicycle, not just a bicycle courier. They've got a big old box on the back in crates, which are taken to predominantly to the restaurants, and then they get used. The contents, we take the crates back, so there's no single-use plastics involved. And we don't see it just as a grow the ingredients, sell it to the customer, and that's the end of it. Instead, we say, well, how can we continue to improve what we're growing for you? Can we trial other things? Anything weird and wonderful that you might like that is very hard to source in the UK, particularly, it's kind of something that we can offer. to make this specific, Pizza Pilgrims is our largest customer in our current farm, who are a pizza chain across London. I think they have about 15 restaurants now, one in Oxford as well. They obviously get through a lot of Basil as a pizza company, but before we started working with them, they were importing either from Italy during the summer or from the Middle East or North Africa. Basil getting air freighted, so clearly quite a lot in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. So we went through that, that journey with them. We grew different varieties. They got to pick exactly the one they wanted that worked best on the pizza, and then have been able to save them. It's many more than 150,000 food miles by now. Able to save them on the food miles and the carbon. And they have made for them, a lot of the relationship is about getting to talk about it, to talk about the farm. Their founders are very hands-on, and they've been in the farm lots. They've done videos and various things, and they really like to shout about the fact that this is where they're getting their basil from, under 10 miles from the restaurants. They've even actually recently opened a sustainability focused restaurant inside Selfridges, if you're in the neighbourhood of Oxford Street, which has some of our basil growing under LED lights in the restaurant itself, so they can be picked off and straight onto the pizza. I have to admit that we do, we germinate and we grow most of the life cycle of the plant in our farm and then take it over there. But they're obviously kept alive and growing, which means they're about as fresh as you could possibly get. But for them, sustainability really is a key. Getting to say they are more sustainable. It's just one of the ingredients they're doing it with, but it's a key kind of selling point for them. And as Ollie was saying, as long as we can deliver price parity, price competitiveness, we can offer them more as a brand in terms of sustainability. I suppose I wanted to leave you with sort of kind of a few thoughts about where vertical farming may go, as well as obviously there's lots of exciting stuff in terms of the new potential crops, the technology itself, but really it's not just that. It's how vertical farming, I think, fits into the whole energy and transport logistics systems of the country, because obviously the farms can go pretty much anywhere. It's how, and we are planning with this with the next farm, how we integrate it with existing generation, obviously particularly low carbon generation, using on-site renewables where possible, the possibility of using some of the plant waste for anaerobic digestion and creation of biogas from that, to almost make vertical farming kind of a part of the energy system as much as it is part of the food production system. Something I'm very excited about is the not seeing it as a standalone thing, the way in which we do with kind of traditional agriculture, I guess you could say, but actually physically integrating vertical farms with food manufacturing. But as as we've heard, it's not doesn't have to just be food. It could be beauty and wellness, nutraceuticals, herbal remedies, pharmaceuticals, eventually, so that you've got that complete control, complete clean, hygienic supply chain, which would, at a time where food supply chains, ingredient supply chains are pretty vulnerable, would seem even more attractive. And finally, how we really integrate vertical farming with our cities, the supply chains, the logistics hubs that fit around our cities. I'm sure lots of you have heard of the golden triangle of logistics in the Midlands. The UK is not such a huge landmass that we can't strategically place vertical farms, so they are within fairly quick reach of the end consumer, so the food miles are minimised. My background is actually in sort of public policy, so I'm not a farmer, I have to say. So I'm very interested. We'll be talking a little bit to government about where we go next with this. I know there is quite a bit of thinking around how we can integrate some of these systems, and then potentially, as an additional benefit, free up some land perhaps for rewilding, for more environmental management. So I think that's, I'll kind of leave it there, but there's a lot more going on than just, you know, what can we grow in a vertical farm. And there are my contact details if anyone wants to continue the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed. That was really good. Stay on, don't go off, because we're going to have a quick Q&A. Must apologise for going over everybody, but I think you'll agree that the speakers have been excellent, and we just wanted to share their insight with you all and just bring this forward for chat as well. So we need to wrap things up. We'll do the Q&A. It's the third webinar of this type that we've done, and as an independent not-for-profit, sharing knowledge and experience in this way is really important for us because we're about building relationships and networks. So I think we shall go into a few questions, quick fire. There's one that was really interesting straight off. I can see it's for Harry, and that is what funding is available and assistance for projects and R&D in this, because that is the biggest obstacle for people.
I mean, there's a range of funding available. So obviously via Innovate UK, there is open smart grant calls that are accessible for everyone, for any kind of novel new technology in the area. And there are a range of challenge-based calls that are coming out of Innovate UK that are more focused on agri-tech and farming innovation and on-farm innovation, particularly for working with growers to solve problems. That is certainly an avenue that is currently available in terms of grant funding and will continue to be available for the foreseeable future. Obviously, there are opportunities wider within the grant funding sphere, such as knowledge transfer partnerships to work collaboratively with industry, and also in terms of more fundamental research via BBSRC or EU funding streams. And the other, I guess, element to this is that, yeah, some commercial funding is available, and you know, to either scope out things, and these are usually done by sort of challenge-based sort of funding, commercial funding opportunities that pop up from time to time, or from direct sort of investment sort of funding. So a lot of funding is available. I would just say that if you want to explore funding further, you just get in touch with us.
Thank you very much. One here on the feasibility of nutrient management in hydroponics and aeroponics. Would anyone like to take that one on nutrient management?
I'm not much of a grower, so I'll give it my best shot. But there's very sophisticated irrigation systems and setups in, I think, most vertical farms. I can only talk for about ours, and we have various, I guess, water cleaning systems like reverse osmosis machines for starters, just to strip back the water from whatever EC it has to start with, coming from the grid, the water grid, and then so that we can build up the nutrient mix within the water with exactly what we want there to be, in order to give the plants the best opportunity to grow in our environments. And I think it takes a lot of time and R&D work in order to find out what nutrients work best, and especially as if you tweak one variable such as temperature, for example, it's the easiest one to mention, you know, suddenly your plants might be shooting more and require more of X nutrient in order to not have any deficiencies and enable that growth. So there's a constant balancing act there, and nutrients are one area where we know there's a lot of scope for more organic fertilizer usage, such as the use of sea kelp, for example, which once our R&D innovation centers open next month, we'll be banging into our systems just to see how they perform.
Thank you, Ali. There's a question that popped up when Ed spoke, actually, and it was, how do you agree on pricing? Is it an open book?
As an open book for our customers, pretty much, yeah. No, so it's negotiated. It's a contracting, because it's not a where we started with individual restaurants, they would go down to the market and buy whatever they could in the morning. The difference is obviously with us, they're agreeing ahead of time to buy certain amounts. We will deliver X kilos per week, whatever it is. The prices, they have to be happy with the price, but they know it's going to be fixed for a certain amount of time. It's not going to go up if there's a particularly bad harvest or whatever in some of the part of the world.
Thanks, Ed. I'd really like, I think we'll have to finish up shortly. So much amazing chat going on and collaboration in the boxes. I'm really so happy that everyone's engaged with this, but there is a good one here. And I'd like every speaker to have a go at answering this. Main challenges now for vertical farming. Is it regulatory, getting the costs down, technological challenges or other? So if we perhaps start with Beanish on that, what do you think?
Yes, so for me, it's more technological because what I have observed, although we are not directly working or growing plants because we are developing growing medium, but now when I visited number of growers, for me, why I understand like there are lots of technological challenges. If we overcome those challenges, our vertical growers, they can overcome it, then they can make vertical farming more sustainable and also more cost effective.
Thank you. How about Ollie? Over to you, Ollie.
So I'd say that the main challenge that we're moving into, again, isn't technological. Whilst we develop our own tech, the technology on the shelf, as Ed mentioned, that can be picked up to support other areas. But these day and age, since August last year, I'd say the main challenge that we are looking to overcome is energy. With the price increase as it's astronomical, the impact that's going to have on every business really, but vertical farms, which are high users. So getting that lower kilowatt hour per kg, to get that right in my head, key metric down by pulling on again different variables in order to lower it. That's what our main challenge is, and keeping on plugging away at that, as well as linking up to renewables.
Thank you. Ed?
I'd agree on energy, and as I just ended with renewables, I think it's getting the farm to run on renewable energy so that that is the key sustainability challenge. Because if you're running on hydrocarbons, you may be saving the emissions from transport, but you're using it in the farm. So it's also an area where there are lots of options, and also it's the direction of travel that we have the broader net zero target should mean that actually the grid will become increasingly renewable over time. So actually that will hopefully get better. But certainly for walking the walk on sustainability, it's energy. It's absolutely the biggest one.
And finally, Harry.
Yeah, and I guess I'm going to sort of broadly agree. I think, there are some technological hurdles. We talked a little bit about nutrient management, but actually, there's definitely a technological hurdle around, dynamic nutrient dosing that is probably underexplored and really could open up a lot for the sector. Energy management and energy efficiency is a particular challenge that's for the broader CEA sector, greenhouses included, that isn't going to go away. There are innovations, going on in this area. So people are working on low voltage supply, and people are working on using software and AI and pulsing of lights and things like that to reduce the amount of energy that's being used. And people are also working on demand side response and integrating CEA systems with the grid in order to basically act as a small battery for that grid. And so there is a lot of things going on in the energy side of things, integrating with renewables as well. So it's a very active area. So some solutions will emerge and are emerging, I think. But certainly that is a considerable barrier to large-scale development at the moment.
Thank you all very much. I think we're going to have to wrap up there because we have gone over, but again, such engaging chat going on, and really would like to thank you all again for joining us as our guest speakers today. I'm just going to load my final slide. Bear with me 1 second. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me and I'll forward to our speakers or share with colleagues here at CHAP if that's more relevant. We also have the exciting opportunity to arrange an in-person tour of our Vertical Farming Development Centre at Stockbridge. So if you fancy that, drop me an email and we can arrange that. Just want to thank everybody for coming along. It's broken CHAP records for attendance, and that's thanks to all of you who have turned up and engaged. So big thumbs up from me. We'll be in contact with the webinar recording so you can share with your colleagues who couldn't attend live. We'll also post a link on social media at CHAP Agritech, all one word. Thank you again. We look forward to hearing from you in the future, and maybe you'll even make it to our next webinar, which is all about the future of spray applications, date to be confirmed. So I'll just leave you with this slide. Please do get in contact. And that's it for today. Thank you.